Rob G, I want to bring you in so that you can tell us what Anthony Edwards got America's former basketball players' panties in a bunch, a collective bunch, when he had some words about players in the NBA.
Oh, he got everybody riled up, Rob Parker, including odd couple friend of the show, Isaiah Thomas.
I know, Zeke wasn't having it.
And but in any event, Anthony Edwards did a long-form interview with the Wall Street Journal, said a lot of different things about his career, his championship aspirations, and so on and so forth. But one thing he said got everybody riled up, and he was talking about the players of yesteryear. Here's what he said, quote, "I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it.
But I'm going to speak on it.
They say it was tougher back then than it is now," talking about 80s and 90s basketball. "But I don't think anybody had any skill back then.
Oh,
MJ was the only one that really had skill. You know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh my God. But now everybody has skill."
this is typical Aaron, prisoner of the moment, someone who's just not like everybody. There are people out here who think everything that happened yesterday is better than anything that's ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I feel so bad that and it happens a lot in the NBA. In order to try to make people feel better about the players, they have to downgrade or ridicule the past.
Sure.
JJ Redick did it. They're all plumbers and butchers. Everybody had a second job, JJ, back then because they didn't make a lot of money, okay? So in the offseason, I remember Richie Hebner was a third baseman for the Mets. He was a grave digger in the offseason. That's how he made extra money. People didn't make that kind of money, so they had other jobs when they weren't playing pro sports. But the notion, the idea that these guys didn't have skills is just outrageous. It's ludicrous. And this is why, which is surprising to me when I hear people say this. Well, I wasn't there. I didn't see it. Mm-hmm. So wait a minute. Aaron, we didn't see Babe Ruth play. But,
he sucked.
But right? He sucked. Oh, yeah. Look at that fat guy. He looked like he was eating a hot dog when he was rounding first base. Right? We don't discount what he was able to accomplish during that time. We weren't around when Martin Luther King, or a lot of people weren't, when Martin Luther King was around. Does that mean he wasn't a great man because we weren't here? Come
His
on, man.
Speeches stunk. Would have never held up in 2024.
Exactly.
I have a dream. Boring. Get him off my TV. Yeah.
100%. I mean, what is this?
So, couple thoughts. So, first of all, your prisoner of the moment thing, this is a theory that I have had for a while, and we see it, by the way, with all these and I'm not trying to be political here, I know it's political season, but all these laws, all these things, and it's like, yeah, we tried this thing 30 years ago, it didn't work, and we've come full circle on it, right? Like, Rob, I'll give you an example. You know New York City well, right? A couple months ago, they had the National Guard in the subways because the subways were out of control. Well, guess what? That happened in the 1980s, and they figured out how to clean it up back then. But now everyone's like, no, you got to. The point I'm trying to make, everything is cyclical, but yes. But basketball, for some reason, I agree with you, it feels like there is this need to denigrate the previous eras.
Yes.
And a couple things stand out. One, first of all, I just think it's dumb to compare eras, period, because I was telling Rob G this before the show, is like, yeah, Patrick Ewing was a back-to-the-basket center, okay? Guess what? If Patrick Ewing was born in 2001 instead of 1961, he would have been shooting threes growing up, and so that would have been part.
Michael Jordan would have been shooting threes if that's what the game was.
You know what I was even thinking about today? Remember, LeBron wasn't a good three-point shooter when he came into the league because three-point shooting wasn't as important, and so it's dumb to compare eras. But it's also, by the way, can I say this? It's dumb to say that MJ was the only one with skill. Reggie Miller, not sure if you heard of him. Larry Bird, not sure if you heard of him. Ray Allen, by the way, was drafted in 95, so 95 by definition means you played in the 90s. Second best three-point shooter of all time. Larry Bird, you probably heard of him. By the way, Magic Johnson couldn't shoot, doesn't mean he wasn't skilled. It's like, it's so stupid, but then it goes back to what you said, Rob. By the way, when you open a conversation by saying, yeah, I didn't really see it, so I shouldn't speak on it.
And then you speak on it.
And then you speak on it. Just don't say anything. Or, yeah, I don't know. Whatever. He's certainly entitled to his opinion.
But this is why I always, and I know this was a full interview. I didn't read it in the Wall Street Journal, the whole thing. But I hope the reporter there just pushed back to be like really, like there were no skilled players, because I would have done that. You mean, so Larry Bird wasn't a skilled player? I didn't see Larry Bird. Well, okay. That's fine. You could say that, but to say that Michael Jordan, because you're wearing his sneakers,
sure.
So you're going to give him and say he was a great player, the greatest player of all time in my estimation in the NBA, right? Who's ever played. But to say he was the only skilled player is just short-sighted. It's just not realistic. It's foolish. It's the recency bias. I mean, I know these guys are young, but you don't have to experience everything to know that something's great. You don't have to. We know that there's so many great people in the world who were around way before we got here.
Sure.
We don't acknowledge them? Of course we do.
Yeah. No, and I think the other thing that bothers me too is the lack of context of what you said about how different things were back then. And so Anthony Edwards isn't the perfect example because, he does this crazy thing. He actually shows up and plays every night if he's healthy enough to play. There's none of this. But like when J.J. Redick did his plumbers and firefighters thing, it's like, yeah, I don't know how Bob Cousy if you put 1956 Bob Cousy in 2025 NBA, I don't know how he'd do. But I also know this. Put whoever, Anthony Edwards, Zion Williamson. Now, as you said, Rob, ask them to work a part-time job during the summer.
Yes.
Ask them to ride trains to away games. No personal masseuses. No five-star hotels.
How about wearing Chuck Taylors with no arches?
Exactly. And so it's just, again, it's stupid to compare eras, but if you're going to do it, at least have a little bit of context. And beyond that, it's just, I just don't understand this argument of there was no skilled players. Now, if you want to argue, hey, the skill across the board is a little bit better now than it was 30 years ago.
That's a different conversation.
Different conversation. And again, I still think the context matters of the game was taught differently back then. There were different values back then. The back to the basket center meant more back then. But it doesn't change the fact that, yes, the league across the board is probably more skilled. But to say Michael Jordan was the only skilled one, oh, by the way, I didn't actually watch. I have no context, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's just absurd.
It's really, really crazy. But you hear this so often. I don't know what the NBA thing is. I don't know why they feel compelled to diss the past of the NBA. I mean, I've been covering the league since 1987. There are a lot of great players.
The other thing too is it feels like the last year more than ever, and I don't know if it's because the older players are pushing back on the younger players. It feels like there has been a concerted effort by the modern player, and I think the modern media too in some ways, not you, not Chris, not myself obviously, but enough people to try to tear down that era, right? Like you think about the fact that, remember in the playoffs, Anthony, how many people had this take, Rob? And I'm guessing you did not, but how many had this take? Anthony Edwards wins one playoff series. I'm not saying he's Michael Jordan.
Yep.
But he's pretty darn close. It's like maybe a guy can win 2 championships before we start comparing him to Michael Jordan. 3? I mean, is that unreasonable? And then it was with the Dream Team. Well, I mean, the Dream Team couldn't have competed against this team. And it's like, well, are they playing in 1992 rules? Are they playing in 2024 rule? Like, it's just, it does feel like the last 12 months more than ever, there's been this effort to really kind of tear down previous eras. And I don't know if it's a media thing. I don't know if it's current players. I don't know what it is.
Part of it is, and some of the analysts and people who, the younger guys, I mean this for real. They don't want Michael Jordan or that era to be as relevant because they didn't see it.
Sure.
And so they try to discount it because when the other guys are talking, who actually covered Michael Jordan and covered LeBron James, it's harder for them to count. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we'll discount what happened with Michael Jordan and say it wasn't that great, so that LeBron is, and now I have like some sort of superpowers, or I'm the voice of the NBA because I'm only talking about LeBron and I saw his career, but I didn't see Michael's career. I think it's lame, and I hear guys do it all the time where they try to discount what's happened before. History is a part of the game. Context is important.
No doubt. And I do wonder if some of these modern guys, too, that are now in the media that are coming up, if somehow it validates their career, right? So like we talked about J.J. Redick, Kendrick Perkins, who I don't know, I have no like fundamental issue, but it seems as though he's another one. He played with LeBron, he played with KD, so it kind of validates his career to be like, let me tell you,
these were the greatest guys who ever played, right?
So I think there's all something to it, but I first of all, take is dumb, but listen, everyone's entitled to their opinion. My personal take on Anthony Edwards' take is that it's dumb, but I think more important